Hey guys, and welcome to Diabetic 365 show. And today we have a very special guest, Ginger, a familiar face in diabetic community, a diabetic online assistant at D-Life, or community manager at D-Life, and she has been with type 1 diabetes from past 12 years, and she's going to share all these experiences, type 1 experiences, and also she has celiac disease, so she's going to share all the type 1 and celiac experiences she had from the past 12 years. So let's get started. Hey Ginger, how are you?
Hello, good, thank you.
It's a pleasure to have you, and thank you so much for accepting my invitation, and thank you for considering my request and your time.
Pleasure. I've seen you on Twitter a lot, so I was like, oh, there's the guy that runs the Twitter account.
Okay, so tell us your story. When were you first diagnosed, and what was your experiences? What was your age at that time?
I was 13, and I actually diagnosed myself at a school health fair, and nobody believed me for like a week. My whole family had the flu, and it was like my flu never went away, and I kept, over the course of 3 weeks, I kept getting sicker and sicker, and I had the classic symptoms: blurry vision, weight loss, bad breath. I was really, really thirsty. I was peeing all the time because I was drinking so much. And then, what's the other one? Oh, fatigue. I didn't want to go to school. And so all of those things, like individually, it was easy to brush off and just say, oh, she's 13, it's not a big deal. But I finally went to the doctor, and sure enough, type 1 diabetes.
Like, you were in school, right, at that time. How was your school and also college phase as a type 1 diabetic? And by the way, when did you have the celiac disease?
I was diagnosed with celiac almost exactly a year after my diabetes diagnosis. I probably had the celiac then already, but I wasn't diagnosed until a year later.
Okay.
But I was really lucky. My school system, especially in, before college, was really supportive, and I sat down with all the teachers every year and I said, this is what diabetes is, and this is the support that I need from you. And they were really cool. I can only remember like twice maybe any kids picking on me. This one guy walked by me and goes, nice pager, when I was wearing the insulin pump. And I was like, that's dumb. But so I didn't have a whole lot of trouble there. And in college, individually I went up to each teacher and I said, I have type 1 diabetes, just so you know. I might have to eat in the middle of class. So I just explained quickly my needs, and it was never a problem. In college, my diabetes management became less tight, less strict because I was drinking a little more, and it was like junior year, there was a period where I drank not as much as the average college student, but I was still drinking more than I certainly should have been. That affected my diabetes management, but... Okay,
so you had this 15 national records for weightlifting. So the first question is, how did you do that with diabetes? Because I heard that if you're into weightlifting, you have type 1 or basically diabetes. It raises your blood pressure, and it's not advisable to do that. So, but how did you achieve that records?
It increases your blood sugar, you were saying?
Yeah, when you're lifting heavy weights, usually it tends to, kick your blood pressure.
Oh, you're talking about blood pressure, yeah.
Yeah, so which in turn is not very good for diabetes.
Wait, that's really only a concern if you already have diabetes complications. But I have no blood pressure issues already. I have no neuropathy or anything like that, or retinopathy. So that's not a concern for me. If someone was older or had diagnosed diabetes complications, then they should definitely talk to their doctor before doing powerlifting, because, like you said, you're straining a lot. When I first got into weightlifting, I was just trying to get healthier. I just wanted to be more fit, and I hired a personal trainer, and within about a year, I had almost doubled my strength. And somebody saw me bench pressing with him and said, you should get that girl in a competition. And so then we specifically started learning about powerlifting training. It's very different than just weightlifting in the gym. And 6 months later, I competed in my first competition, and I won and everything, but my blood sugar and learning about how to manage my diabetes around it was something that really took me like a year to fine tune, especially during an actual competition. So it was a lot of trial and error and studying my diabetes during this type of training and this type of exercise, and it was a lot of trial and error.
It's a lot of trial and error. So what's your advice, not as an endocrinologist or doctor, but on your experience? So should one go for a weight training or weightlifting? Weight training is kind of just a strength training.
So powerlifting, are you saying powerlifting or weightlifting? Or weightlifting?
Exactly.
I mean, I think most people, the average person is looking to just become fit and exercise. So nobody would ever just start out powerlifting, right? It's so strenuous on the body. So if you're curious about powerlifting, you're going to start with weightlifting if you haven't already learned the basics of that. My advice is that you hire a professional who knows what they're doing, because there's 1,000 ways to do it wrong. And there's so much to know. And my favorite part is learning how to do it correctly. And, from there, that's how you become successful.
So you had all this, you were into weight training so much, and finally you wrote this book, Your Diabetes Science Experiment. So that's the one. So what's this book all about? When
I first started weightlifting and then powerlifting, I said to my doctor, I said, I'm going into powerlifting, I'm thinking about competing. And he literally rolled his eyes at me and dismissed the comment. And so I had no support, and it made me so frustrated that he just dismissed me and didn't think it was possible and didn't take me seriously.
And also as a girl.
Yeah, and as a girl, absolutely. Absolutely. He just, whatever. And so I started, my trainer loves talking about human physiology, and it used to just, go over my head, but when he started talking about things that I could then relate to my diabetes and my blood sugar, everything started making sense. So I started reading more medical textbooks, and I'm not really a science type of mind, but because I could apply it to my own body and literally see what was going on in my life because of this physiology, it made so much sense to me. And I was finding out a lot of explanations for diabetes questions that we hear all the time, that I read all the time on forums from other people. And I was finding the answers to these, and I felt like doctors were never explaining these things to us, maybe because they didn't think that we were smart enough to understand them, maybe because they didn't understand how important it was to know because they don't have diabetes. But I wanted to share that information in a way that anyone could understand.
So what are some of the books you found resourceful other than the one you wrote?
Unfortunately, I mean, the two books I really used were med school textbooks. So, I mean, they're very boring, very dry, and the only reason I could understand them was because I had already had that kind of basic training with my trainer, Andrew, who had taught me a lot of the vocabulary and taught me some of the physiological systems. So then by the time I was reading those textbooks, I could really translate and understand what it was saying. But I mean, I wouldn't recommend them to the average person, which is why I wrote my book, so that I could take what was useful there and put it into terms that anybody could understand.
Can understand. Okay. Usually, I read this Gary's Autonomy.
Oh, yeah.
The Bible for all the joints or muscles who are into weightlifting and weight training, which I'm doing right now. So just wanted to have that thought. So apart from this, so you think everyone should experiment their body through trial and error methods? Is it really important for a diabetic to do this?
Yes, because we all have different insulin needs, and also our insulin needs can change drastically through different times of our life. What the amount of insulin I need in the morning is totally different than the amount I need at night, and that again can also fluctuate at different times in my life. If I gain 5 pounds, I become more insulin resistant, which means I need more insulin. If I lose 5 pounds, I'm going to become more insulin sensitive, which means I need less insulin. So I need to recalibrate all of my insulin doses. If you don't do that and you're getting too much